Alright, so for the last 3 years I was working full-time as a YouTube video editor using Adobe Premiere Pro, and actually the software is like really simple. To prove it, I'm going to challenge myself to teach you everything you need to know about the software in less than 15 minutes. Hell, it's too much. Let's make it in less than 10. Timer starts now. So once you open the app, quick disclaimer, for the purposes of the video, we're using the absolute latest at this point version of Premiere, which is 23.4. If you're new, you should already have it. If not, just update the software, it's not a big deal. Now back to the video. You're gonna see this window, which most likely will be blank. Here you'll usually have 10 most recent projects. It's pretty intuitive. If you're starting a new project, click New Project. If you want to open a specific project or downloaded one, click Open Project. Premiere files have always PR project type file, Premiere project type file, and are usually automatically set to be opened with Premiere. Anyway, when you start a new project, this window will open. Don't get overwhelmed, just type in a project file name you'd like to use, set project location, click Create, and you're set. Now you are in the main Premiere interface, which you'll see for the majority of your time here. What I like to do working from the laptop and not so big of a screen is to modify the editing framework by moving all these panels to upper left corner here to leave as much space for my timeline. You can easily drag them to different places on the screen, stretch them and close if you think they are useless. Remember, you can always restore a lost panel from a window panel. I generally prefer to have as much space for my timeline as I can possibly get, and after that goes my preview panel and all others. After you've achieved the result you like, save it as a new workspace in Window, Workspaces, save as new workplace, and now you can always go back to it by choosing it in the Workplaces window. In the project panel you'll have all your files. You can import them directly here, or they will magically appear after you add something to your timeline. Quick tip, it's not usually important, but make a habit of creating folders for each type of file so that when you finally land a big project, you won't make a mess. I prefer to directly drop all my footage on timeline, without going through project window and start working immediately, just drag and drop them. You have different tracks for footage, one half for video tracks and the other one for audio. You can add more tracks whenever you want by just right-clicking in that area and choosing Add Track. When you place one clip on top of the other, it cancels it out, so be careful with that. When you have something on your timeline, it will be shown as produced media in the preview panel. One thing to note, if you just drop a piece of footage onto a new empty timeline, Premiere will create a sequence and use properties of that footage for the sequence settings. You only need to pay attention to dimensions and frame rate. Most of the time 1920 by 1080p is preferred and 1080 by 1920 pixels is used when you want to create a vertical video. You can set or change sequence settings at any time you want, and the program will adjust everything to it. When your timeline is populated with footage, you'll need to navigate through it as quickly as possible. Okay, so right now we're starting to learn some very important shortcuts. Now keep in mind that this video is very short. No pun intended. So everything I mentioned here is extremely important and you must know it. So please learn every shortcut, write it down somewhere, learn every shortcut I mentioned here. Thanks. Alright, so back here, to zoom on anything, just point your mouse to the point you want to zoom into, hold Alt or Option key on your keyboard, and use your mouse wheel to zoom in or out. Spend some time playing around with it and get a general feel of things. To move left and right, use the slider below, touchpad, or Shift plus mouse wheel. You can also just drag this playback thingy left and right when looking for a specific moment. To move up and down the timeline when working with a lot of layers, use Ctrl or Command plus mouse wheel. To play the footage in real time, click this play button or press spacebar on your keyboard. When your footage is playing, use J and L keys to speed up the playback speed in both directions. Now, if your footage feels laggy because of some very high quality footage or low specs of your computer, or just because you have a lot of animation, you can click here to reduce the quality of the preview of your footage. This will not affect final result in any way, that's just the preview that happens here, and it's often used to the smallest amount just so you can preview the footage in real time without any lags. Now, in order to be a great editor, you need to make a lot of cuts. There's a number of ways you can cut a clip in the Premiere. If you want to cut out the beginning of a clip, press Q. It will remove everything on the left of this playback stick. If you press W, same will happen to the right part. The fastest way to make a cut at a specific point on a timeline on a specific clip is to use a razor tool. That's my preferred method. Just simply press C, cut everywhere you'd like to, just at these few points, then press V to return to a regular cursor. I recommend you get used to it. If you want to just make a cut at the current point on the timeline, press Ctrl or Command plus K. To delete the part you've cut out, simply press Delete or Backspace. If you want to delete a clip and also fill in the gap it created, use Triple Delete by holding Shift and pressing Delete. Let's add more clips. If you are adding a clip and you only want a specific part, for example, this video can be very long, like 15 minutes footage, but you only want like 1 minute, and you don't want to go through a hassle of making cuts on your timeline, you can just drop it into a project panel, double click it, this will open the clip in the source panel, and here select the needed part by marking it with these two buttons, or just pressing I and O keys, standing for in and out points. From here you just drag and drop the footage onto your timeline. To duplicate the clips, hold Alt and drag the clips away. When you want to change a specific property of a clip, go to Effect Controls panel. Here you'll see basic properties of the video and or audio clip and all the effects you have applied. For example, this video size is much smaller than that of my sequence, so I'm just going to bring the size all the way up until it fits. I do that by literally dragging the value left and right. This slider represents it. You can do that with all blue values. If you want more sensitivity, hold Ctrl while doing it, and if you need some rapid changes, hold Shift. It will look something like this. All of these values you can easily animate over time by clicking on the stopwatch icon. This will create what's called a keyframe at this point on your timeline. Keyframes are basically points on your timeline that hold in information of a particular property. When going from one keyframe to another, the value of that property will change according to the difference between the values. So basically you can create keyframes at different points in time when you want to, and Premiere will slowly turn one value into another. This is what's called linear animation. You can also make it smoother by selecting a few keyframes and selecting the animation type. You can ease in and out, choose Bezier animation, or you can click here, open this graph and manually adjust what you would like your animation to look like. Just play around with different animation styles to find out which one looks best. I prefer this one. Now, there is one unique parameter that you can change here, and this is speed. To change the speed of the footage, just right-click it and choose Speed or Duration, and change the variable as you please. You can change speed value or change the duration to fit something in, and speed will change automatically. You can also click on the frame hold to freeze an entire clip at this frame. You can add effects and they will appear here. I'll list most important effects in the next video, but just so you know, the most practical are the warp stabilizer, Gaussian or camera blur, Luma key, audio transitions, and Lumetri color. Now a little bit about Lumetri. You can add this effect or it will be applied automatically when you select a footage and go into Color Workspace. This effect is like a knockoff version of Adobe Lightroom but for video. In this effect you can perform 99% of all your practical casual color grading. Mostly pay attention to these two sliders to change color balance, exposure, and these parameters. Saturations and vibrance, and curves. All applied effects you can easily turn on and off by clicking this Effects button. One important thing to know when applying effects is that you can apply them not only to singular clips, but to a whole sequence. In order to do that, you'll need an adjustment layer. Every effect applied to an adjustment layer will be applied to every layer under it. To add it, go to File, New, Adjustment Layer, or you can do it here. You can play with the opacity settings of the adjustment layer to lower the values of all effects. Now text is actually very easy to add. Just press T to activate text tool and click where you'd like to add text in the preview window, like this. You can edit everything about that text in Effect Controls or in the Essential Graphic panel, which you can open from Window panel, in Edit submenu. If you want to create captions for a video like you see in Shorts, go to Text-Based Editing Workspace. You can also go to Captions, but I think that's more preferable for me. Click on this big button to make a transcript of your video, which, by the way, you can actually edit and this will apply to your video. That's why it's called text-based editing. But then you can create actual captions in the Captions window. This will create a subtitle track and you can modify text settings by bulk choosing all of the text files and applying changes in the Essential Graphic panel like we did before. On the social media, and I mean Instagram, TikTok, anything. Now, finally, let's get to audio. First of all, if you want to separate audio from video, which come together, and they usually do, you need to unlink them. To do that, learn Ctrl or Command L shortcut. This will make it so you can edit audio and video separately. Now, inside Effects Control panel, you're able to modify volume of a specific audio. It is automatically set to be animated, but I usually just turn it off and set a value I need. The other way to change audio volume is by changing the volume of an entire track. This means that Right now, every clip that will be on that track will be affected by the changes we make to it. For this, you'll need an audio track mixer panel. You can open it from here, and in here you can drag the sliders of different tracks up and down to increase or decrease volume. Also, if you expand this menu by clicking on that arrow, you can add different audio effects to the entire tracks. What I prefer, and what you might add, is Deesser, dynamics, mastering, echo, or basically anything you want. But audio editing is a big topic, and that's a topic for another day. So the most important effects when you don't really want to mess with audio too much, for me personally, are mastering, which automatically increases the energy of the track but risks emphasizing the hiss sound, and Deesser. Now this effect is actually incredible. This effect lowers the volume of certain frequencies of the audio. What I like to do is to add Deesser to the clip of somebody speaking. Now the point here is that first you add Deesser to the clip of somebody speaking, you choose the frequencies that follow the voice, and then you just cut it out and paste it onto your music track. This will make it so your music can play at original volume, but the frequencies of your voice will be cut out, so it would be much easier to understand. And just play around with these 2 points to figure out the main frequencies you want to cut out, and just apply it to the music track, and this will make your speakers sound much more clear. Here's before and after. On the social media, and I mean Instagram, TikTok, anything. On the social media, and I mean Instagram, TikTok, anything. And when you have 2 audio tracks, like I do, one from the camera and the other one from the microphone, which is, by the way, sitting nicely on this blanket right here, in order to reduce, any shockwaves I create when I accidentally touch the table, you'll need to synchronize them. In order to do that, you just choose both clips, right click and choose synchronize, hit OK, default settings usually work, and yeah, that will do the job. Just remembering, like 10 or 15 years ago, I had to synchronize all the clips manually when I was making Minecraft videos in Sony Vegas. That was rough times. Now speaking of tracks, you have buttons M and S down here that stand for mute and solo. When you press mute, the M button, the track mutes and all others play. And when you press solo, only that track will make a sound and all others will go mute. By pressing this I, you can disable the visibility of video tracks. But if you want to disable a sound of a specific clip or clips, or turn off a video, which I mean you can just disable certain clips on your timeline. To do that, you can just right click them and press disable, or press Shift plus E. Now this is actually one of the most important features you need to know about. When you have a timeline with a lot of footage, maybe 30 minutes or more, and you have some parts which are kind of important, kind of not, you don't know if you want to leave them or cut out, you just press disable and you can come back to them anytime you want. You don't need to drag them all the way across the timeline somewhere else. No need for that. Now in effects panel, you also have audio and video transitions that are very helpful to add immediately if you don't want to mess around with settings yourself. For audio, you have these 3 effects. First increases the volume, you may add it in the beginning for example. The second one keeps the volume the same between 2 tracks, and the last one just fades the volume out completely. You can use them in the beginning or end of the track, or when transitioning from one clip to the other. Test them out and see which one sounds best. I usually don't use video transitions, but cross dissolve might be helpful for fast transitions. Just drag and drop them, and actually with transitions you can edit them out by clicking here and dragging them in or out to make them shorter or longer. So now that we've covered almost everything, time for some honorable mentions. First, markers. God, I love markers. You just press M and the marker appears. You can double click it to change color or name, and basically marker is set to not lose any important point in the sequence. Now I usually use markers in this way. I go through my footage and I mark out the parts when I want to add b-roll, parts that I might want to cut out, and the parts when I want to add animation. And in the end I confirm if I did everything by going from one marker to another. Now one little trick not a lot of people know about is that you can actually hold Alt or Option key and then drag the marker out to make it cover an entire part of the video. The more you know. Blend modes. In effect controls you have blend modes. Basically read more on the internet about what they do, but you will basically use like add, screen or overlay, or maybe soft lighting. Basically what they do is they change different blending options on overlay of your videos. It's mostly used for flares, lens effects, and sometimes for keyed out elements on the black background. Dynamic link. This is actually my favorite tool. If you use After Effects like me or Audition together with Premiere, you can create dynamic links by right-clicking and creating a dynamic link, and then editing the footage in After Effects or Audition, for example, and the changes will be applied immediately to Premiere. And when you're done, you can right-click the footage and click Render and Replace to render the animation as a file for faster playback. Now, in order to render this file in a widely used codec with the highest possible resolution, keep watching this video, I'll mention it later. Labels. You can actually change colors of the layers for better structuring by going right-click, Label, and choosing the color you like. My favorite is Mango, if you're interested. Grave accent key. If you click this little button right here in the corner of your keyboard, you can open a panel that is active at the moment, full screen. You can basically click on the panel, click Grave accent key and open it full screen. This is extremely convenient to open a preview panel and watch the sequence as it should be played. Saving file. Always, and I mean always, I can't stress it out enough, always press Ctrl or Command S to save your file, like every minute or two. This is a great habit to have in every program you're working in. Just press Ctrl or Command S to save the changes. You never want to lose the progress you've made by forgetting to save the file. Also, go to Edit, Preferences, Autosave, and set Automatically Save to 5 or 10 minutes. This will make your life a lot easier and the job safer, trust me. Now, undo and redo standards are fairly standard. There are Ctrl-Command-Z and Ctrl-Command-Shift-Z. Slip tool. Now, if you cut down the footage but you need another part from the same video, you can just press Y and drag it left and right to find the moment you're looking for. Quicktime. Now, that's what I mentioned before. Most people on Windows system don't actually have Quicktime codec installed, but I do recommend you spend just a few minutes to do that. This will open you a lot of very high-res exporting options for serious projects and will be actually your main export codec for After Effects. You're welcome. Finally, export. So just set in and out points in the sequence using I and O keys, as we discussed earlier, for in and out points, just like this. Then press Ctrl-Command-M to open export window, or just click here. Type in the name, location, and choose the preset for export settings. Now, most of the time, this one will do the job for you, but if you want to maximize the final quality even more, go here, click Use Maximum Render Quality, and then go down and increase the bitrate. Generally, don't set the bitrate higher than 30, and this will already be incredibly detailed and you would just won't need that much. Now, before you click export, make sure that the source and output characteristics match. Pay attention mostly to video dimensions and frames per second. Finally, you can click export and watch your video as a file. That was a lot of script I had to read, to be honest. Hope you guys learned something new today. Mostly this video was made for those of you who are just starting out, but just so you know, a few of these tips I picked up just recently, so even pros might get something out of it. Anyway, this video is definitely not like everything you need to know, but that's like still 95% of all the important information, so that should cover most of your day-to-day projects. Yeah, make sure to remember or write down every shortcut and tip I mentioned in this video. There should definitely be timestamps on, you know, this YouTube timeline thingy. I'll also attach a link for a Google Drive in which I uploaded the files from this project so you can practice. And yeah, that was a fun video. See ya.